You were told this was a love story gone wrong. One man, one wish, one girl who lost her mind. That was the lie built to protect him. What the cameras actually filmed, and trained you to forget, was a woman's mind, overwritten in real time, restaged as romance so nobody would call it what it was. The villain was never the girl who broke. The villain was the silence that let his wish go unquestioned. And the most disturbing part? She wasn't the first voice buried inside that silence. We'll get to that. Here is what obsession was built to make you ignore. On the surface, this is simple. A shy man. A girl he's loved since before he had words for it. A cheap novelty branch, snapped in a moment of heartbreak. He never meant for any of it, the film insists. He was grieving. His cat had just died. He was rejected, hours earlier, by the only woman he'd ever wanted. He went in looking for a tiger's eye pendant to replace the one Nikki lost. A stone half the folklore in that shop would tell you means protection, self-mastery. He walked out with the opposite. The film treats it as an accident of shopping. It is the accident that defines the entire film. A man who set out to protect the woman he loved, and settled, without noticing the difference, for owning her instead. The film built an entire infrastructure of sympathy around him before the wish was even spoken. Grief first, rejection second. The wish, framed as the next reasonable step for a broken man, not as a decision. That denial is staged as tragedy. The shy guy, too scared to speak. But it is also the last true consent Nikki will ever give about her own heart. And the film wants you crying for him instead of her. No witnesses, no confession. Just a wish, whispered into silence, scored like something upon a star. Not the opening act of a predatory protocol nobody agreed to. This wasn't spontaneous heartbreak curdling into magic. It was a mechanism, sitting in a shop window, waiting only for a trigger. This is the deception at the center of obsession. A story engineered so completely around one man's suffering that his victim's suffering reads as the plot twist instead of the point. Imagine a man who gets to keep his grief, his guilt, and the audience's sympathy, while the woman he erased gets only the label of monster. Start with the doorstep. Hours after the wish, Nikki reappears, lit soft, framed exactly like every returning love interest in every romance ever made. The film wants this read as fate rewarding a broken heart. But watch the timing, the wish. Then, immediately, a woman standing at a door she had no reason to be at, telling a lie about a dying father who was never sick at all. That isn't romance answering a prayer. That's a system responding to a trigger. Fast, seamless, rehearsed. As if this exact sequence had run before. Then the kiss, and the scream. One unedited breath where her face tells the truth, before an excuse about MDMA arrives to bury it. This is the only unfiltered frame in the entire film, and the story spends 90 minutes making sure nobody looks at it twice. Watch what disappears next. The cat, the one creature that ever loved Bear without being made to, is dismantled, then served back to him, by hands no longer entirely her own. Call it body horror if it helps you sleep. It is closer to a suppressed ritual. Erase the last proof that real devotion exists, before the fake kind has to compete with it. Then Ian's warning, delivered as gossip, not alarm. He mentions, almost in passing, that Nikki once called Bear her little brother. That single sentence is a biological fact fighting its way to the surface. The real woman, still in there, still true, still being spoken over. Watch what Bear does with that fact. Nothing. He absorbs it the way he absorbs everything inconvenient in this story, as background noise to his own unfolding tragedy. The one person positioned to hear the warning is the one person the narrative built never to listen for it. And finally, the call. A company with a script for exactly this. A representative who doesn't flinch when a possessed, screaming woman is put on hold. Think about the implications of that. Not an emergency script, a routine one. That isn't comic relief. That's a conspiracy of ordinariness. Evidence this has run through this exact protocol before, on more than one woman. Listen again to how she says it. Not shaken, not surprised. The exact tone of someone who has read this same file before, more times than she'll ever say out loud on a recorded line. That tone is the evidence the film never meant to leave behind. Piece it together. and the volatile, glitching body on screen stops looking like one woman losing her mind. It starts looking like more than one voice, fighting for the same throat. Now the breaking point, the moment the suppressed truth almost surfaces, and the moment the story chooses, deliberately, to bury it again. Watch Nikki's eyes in the second before she kills Sarah. Not narrow with envy, wide, scanning. The posture of something defending a signal, not something coveting a man. The film sells you jealousy. What it shows you is a warning system, misfiring through the only body it has left to use. Then Ian, handed the exact same power, the exact same dying friend in front of him. He chooses himself instantly. No struggle, no hesitation. That is the film's chilling reality, hiding inside a joke. Nothing supernatural was required to produce selfishness. It was already sitting there, waiting for permission. Watch how loudly the film lets greed announce itself. Bills raining, a punchline built for laughter. Bear's wish, the one that actually destroyed 3 lives, made no sound at all, just a knock at a door. The camera has already told you which kind of magic it wants you to fear, and it isn't the quiet kind. Imagine spending your last free seconds reaching for a door someone else designed to be almost open. Then the door the story promised from its very first act, the one honest sentence in the whole script. The wish ends only when the wisher dies. For one frame, the lighting softens. For one frame, this looks like an ancient rule about to be honored. It isn't honored. She finds the branch first, and the one exit this film ever offered is taken off the table, on camera, on purpose. This is not an accident of plotting. It is an act of authorial will, the architects of this deception deciding, deliberately, which victim gets to walk free, and which one doesn't. And here's the unveiling the entire film has been circling since its first frame. Nikki doesn't curse Bear out of cruelty. She teaches him the only language he ever gave her. What was framed as a monster's revenge is, in truth, an existential threat passed hand to hand, victim to victim, forever. The choir gains a new voice, and it learned every word of its new song from him. Imagine an entire industry built on selling permission. One heartbreak, one novelty item, one victim at a time. Step back from the film, and the pattern gets harder to unsee. A shop that sells this kind of power isn't hiding in some gothic ruin. It's on a street, between a coffee place and a dry cleaner. Ordinary infrastructure, built to make predatory transactions feel like retail. A company with a rehearsed script for a screaming, possessed woman on the other end of the phone isn't reacting to an anomaly. It's running a mechanism it built for volume. In a story that lets its perpetrator survive, sympathetic, guilt-ridden, framed for forgiveness, while burying its victim under the label of monster, isn't a twist ending. It's a suppressed reality this genre has been rehearsing for decades, one obsessive girlfriend horror movie at a time. This was never really about a magic branch. It was about how easily a culture will hand a hurting man total control over someone else's heart, and call the result romantic, right up until the moment it can't anymore. That is the conspiracy this film asks you to enjoy as entertainment. This film isn't unique. It's a pattern with a new coat of paint. A genre that has spent decades asking audiences to fear the woman a man broke, instead of the man who broke her. Obsession simply did it more honestly than most, and still couldn't resist looking away at the end. Every object left behind, the taped door, the cat's collar, the second Willow's broken half, reads, in hindsight, as an inventory of evidence nobody in the story ever collects. The film ends before anyone has to answer for what those objects mean. That silence is not an oversight. It is the last act of the deception, and it is the one this genre repeats every single time. Power over another person's heart was never magic. It was always just permission, dressed up as fate. And every system that grants that permission survives by teaching its victims to pass it forward. So, was Nikki ever the monster of this story? Or was she simply the first voice loud enough to make you finally listen? If this truth disturbed you, good. Smash like and subscribe. The Pulse Cinema has more dark truths waiting.